So check this out. In 2007, the Airbus A380 took to the skies, a double-decker four-engine behemoth, the largest passenger jet ever built. It was supposed to be the future, a flying palace connecting the world's biggest cities in style. When Singapore Airlines flew the first commercial A380, it felt like a new era in travel. Airlines everywhere, Emirates, Qantas, British Airways, lined up to buy it, betting big on packing hundreds of passengers into one massive aircraft. For a while it worked. The A380 became a symbol of global connection and engineering prowess. But here's the twist. Not a single US airline, American, Delta, United, ever ordered one. The world's biggest aviation market said, no thanks. Why did the country that practically invented modern air travel snub the most ambitious passenger plane ever built? Let's get into it. To understand this, you need to know how flying in America works. For decades, the hub-and-spoke model ruled: fly from a small city to a big hub, then connect onward. The A380 was built for this. Move 500-plus people between mega-hubs like London and New York. On paper, it was perfect for crowded airports and booming passenger numbers. But in the US, things changed after airline deregulation in 1978. Airlines could fly wherever, whenever, and competition exploded. Enter the point-to-point model, direct flights between cities using smaller, more flexible planes. Passengers loved it. No more layovers, just straight to your destination. Airlines like Southwest and JetBlue thrived, connecting cities with nimble jets like the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320. US carriers realized they could use new, long-range twin-engine jets to fly directly from secondary hubs to international destinations. Routes like Denver to Frankfurt or Portland to Tokyo didn't need a giant plane, they needed efficiency. The A380 with its massive capacity became a huge risk. You had to fill nearly every seat, every day, or lose money. Smaller planes like the Boeing 787 were easier to fill and less risky. US airlines, obsessed with profits and flexibility, weren't interested in betting everything on one giant plane. Airbus built a magnificent hammer, but US airlines needed a power drill. The A380 was the perfect answer to a question no one in America was asking. The business model had already moved on. Even if a US airline wanted the A380, they'd hit a wall: the airports. The A380 is colossal. Its wingspan nearly a football field long. Most US airports weren't ready for it. Taxiways were too narrow, gates too small, ground equipment too light. The A380 needed special gates with 2 jet bridges, reinforced taxiways, and bigger service vehicles. Only a handful of airports like JFK and LAX made the investment, mainly for foreign carriers. For most US hubs, upgrading for a plane their main tenants didn't want made no sense. Airlines wouldn't buy the plane because airports weren't ready, and airports wouldn't upgrade because airlines weren't buying. The A380 was stuck, a one-trick pony limited to a few venues. Compare that to the Boeing 777 or 787, they can land almost anywhere, fit standard gates, and offer airlines total flexibility. The A380 demanded special treatment, making it a logistical headache for US carriers. If American, Delta, and United had all ordered A380s, airports would have scrambled to upgrade. But with no demand, the infrastructure never materialized. The concrete and steel of America's airports quietly vetoed the Super Jumbo. Airlines are businesses, and every decision comes down to the numbers. The A380's price tag? Over $400 million per plane. For that you could buy almost 2 Boeing 787s. More flights, more flexibility, less risk. The A380 had 4 engines, but by the 2000s, 2 were enough for long-haul flights. 4 engines meant more fuel, more maintenance, and higher costs. Newer planes like the 787 and A350, with 2 engines and lightweight materials, were game changers. They could fly just as far, carry 250-350 passengers, and burn far less fuel per seat. The A380 only made sense if you filled every seat, every flight. But if you flew it at 70-80% capacity, a realistic average, its efficiency plummeted. US airlines, especially after the 2008 financial crisis, became obsessed with cost control. They wanted the lowest possible cost per seat mile, and the new twin jets delivered. The A380, with its high ownership and operating costs, just couldn't compete. Think of it like this. The A380 is a tour bus, great for one big group, but US Airlines needed a fleet of flexible vans. When the CFOs ran the numbers, the answer was clear. The A380 was a beautiful money pit. There's another layer here: culture. For airlines like Emirates and Singapore, the A380 was a flying billboard, a symbol of national pride and luxury. They installed showers, private suites, and bars. The A380 was a marketing tool as much as a plane. But US Airlines? They're publicly traded, focused on efficiency and profit, not prestige. Their culture is about reliability, cost-cutting, and squeezing every dollar from every seat. They pioneered baggage fees and basic economy fares, spending millions on a flagship for bragging rights. Not their style. When US executives looked at the A380, they saw a high-risk, high-cost asset that didn't fit their no-frills model. Why install a shower when you can add 6 more economy seats? The very things that made the A380 appealing elsewhere, size, luxury, wow factor, were liabilities in the US American Airlines weren't in the business of grand gestures. They were in the business of running a reliable, profitable network. The A380's extravagance just didn't translate. Timing is everything, and for the A380 in the US, it was terrible. When the A380 launched in the mid-2000s, US Airlines were still reeling from 9/11s and bankruptcy. They were cutting costs, not buying half-billion-dollar jets. Then the 2008 financial crisis hit, and air travel demand collapsed. Airlines were in survival mode, not shopping for the world's biggest plane. By the time the industry recovered, the window had closed. And then there's Boeing. US Airlines have a long, close relationship with Boeing, an American company that builds planes to their exact needs. When Boeing developed the 777 and 787, they worked hand in glove with US carriers. By the time Airbus came knocking with the A380, US Airlines were already invested in Boeing's efficient, long-range twins. Switching to the A380 would have meant a mixed fleet, new training, and higher costs. The Boeing factor, shared history, collaboration, and a better-aligned product made the A380 a tough sell. In the end, bad timing and Boeing's home field advantage sealed the A380's fate in America. The A380 is an engineering marvel. Quiet, comfortable, and for the right airline, magnificent. For a decade, it was the king of the skies. But its absence from US fleets proves the best product can't succeed if it doesn't fit the customer's needs. US Airlines had already chosen flexible, efficient networks with twin-engine jets. The A380, built for mega hubs and grand statements, was simply the wrong answer. It was a clash of philosophies, and the American vision won. The US didn't hate the A380 for what it was. They just needed something different. And that difference sealed the fate of the world's largest passenger aircraft on US soil.